People are growing horns from excessive phone usage, and more information drops in the mega real estate lawsuit. Check out Toole Time right now. I'm Tom Toole. She's Jess Lion. It's Toole Time, and we are here talking about people literally growing horns from using their phones too much, as well as some major accusations in this bombshell real estate lawsuit. So let's get into the first topic here.
Good stuff.
This is something we wanted to talk about for a while, which is excessive screen time usage, some of the things Apple does. But there was an article that came out and some news that came out a couple days ago. And there are two Australian researchers that have discovered young people are developing horn-like spikes in the back of their skulls because of extended periods of time spent looking down at mobile devices like phones, iPads, tablets, whatever. So the article goes on to say, the headline's a little clickbaity, if that's a word.
Yeah.
But it's they're bone spurs that are developing by tilting your head forward for long periods of time. So what do you think about all this, Jess? Pretty interesting stuff.
I thought the article was pretty good to go along with like the screen time topic. It's pretty interesting when I was looking at the stats and it was saying like how long people are actually like looking at their phones per day or on their phones per day. And I think that article was saying like most people spend 3 hours and 15 minutes on their phone. 20% of people spend more than 4.5 hours. It's just so much time. You're right, looking down. So like getting these spurs or these horns on the back of your neck, while I think it would come with like older age, it's coming prematurely and they don't go away. Not that it causes any harm, but still. And then I went and looked at my screen time stats. Mm-hmm. You're gonna fall over when you hear this. So my last 7 days, as compared to the 3 hours, mine was 6 hours and 44 minutes on the phone, 12 hours on social, 6 hours for like reading and audiobooks, and then on productivity and stuff was less than 5 hours.
So you spent double the time on social media than you did on doing productivity tasks. That's what that's telling you.
Yeah, ridiculous.
And almost 7 hours a day? Wow.
I don't know if they like stay open in the background, like maybe they do, and that's how they stay open, or if like Spotify counts as social media, but that is ridiculous. Like, it's insane what you're spending your time on. And the biggest issues I feel like with this are, number one, a lot of people doing it with driving, which is the worst possible thing. I know I'm guilty of it. Like, not on social media, but like just answering texts or seeing that an email came through, or even when you're looking at your GPS. There's this new Black Mirror episode. Do you know that show?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so Black Mirror is like a sci-fi show that's out, and they hit on like modern day topics. And this episode, sorry, spoiler, is this guy's holding another guy hostage. Long story short, he wants to talk to the owner of this social media company because he's blaming him for being on his phone while he was driving and killing another person.
Sounds like a reach.
It was a reach. But it was like, it kind of dawns on you like, yeah, you look down at your phone while you're driving or doing whatever for like a half of a second and your life is at risk and someone else's life is at risk. So I think driving with the screen time like is just too much. And then like, I was also thinking like the first thing I do in the morning is like look at the news on my phone or like whatever on my phone and not even like kiss my husband or something like that. It's just ridiculous how much time we're spending looking at these screens.
So what this tells me, and what's interesting, it's younger people it's happening to because they're still developmental. They're still like developing, rather than someone my age who I've been the same height for 20 some years now. So that's not surprising to me, and I know these things didn't exist when I was a kid. Yeah. So I know there's some things that you look at. Like kids in school right now, they use iPads all the time. I mean, they're actually having like the kids do work on those, which I think has an educational value. But then they want to use them at home and do some other stuff. So we can actually there's a way you can set it up where the thing will shut down after a certain amount of screen time.
That's cool.
So we've done that with our kids. So that's one thing. I mean, it just shows you that this is a real problem, and people don't realize how much that they're on their phone and they're not present. The screen time alert I think is great because it puts things in perspective for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And on top of that, people have way too many notifications. They get notified anytime someone likes something on Facebook or Instagram and all this stuff. So I've literally turned off every notification possible, with the exception of the CRM for our business, text messaging, phone calls, and I think that's about it. Because otherwise you're like, oh, what went off? What went off? And then none of that stuff's really that important.
188 times per day. I've tapped like just notifications. That's how much you tap it. So I did what you did, turned off the notifications too for like essentials.
I mean, there's people that I literally see glued to their phone. I know people that have gotten in car accidents from texting. Like, I'm not going to say who they are. They know who they are. We've talked about it. I've seen it happen. And this was even before it was like an iPhone. It was like a BlackBerry or something. So there's a lot of safety issues there. And as much as they try to put these safety issues into play, like I know on my car it says, you're driving right now, you can't access your phone.
On the screen.
But then all you have to do is hit a button that says, I'm not driving. So how many people are doing that?
Yeah, I think I was kind of put that into like what I wanted to say, like what are some of the things that you can do to stop this, and maybe like having an app that shuts it down while you're driving. And I know some things do that. I think Waze doesn't let you or another app doesn't let you access the app while you're driving, but all you have to do is click.
No, you can access it, but you can't change the location or anything else.
Okay, yeah. So, but that stops someone for a second. Like I guess it's another like break, but I don't know. I think we need to put the phones down altogether.
I don't want horns. I mean, that's pretty crazy to me. I mean, that's and there's a good buddy of mine's a chiropractor. I mean, he said that, that people have a lot of problems with their posture because of texting, because they're always looking down like this.
It's horrible.
And they're developing like humps on their back,
yeah.
like literally from bad posture. So all that I see here is that this thing has changed my life in a lot of ways and changed my business, and it makes it a lot easier to do what we do. That being said, you've really got to limit it, because you can literally be on it all day. And I see it happen with kids a lot. I mean, they're on their screens all the time, and there's an appropriate time for that.
Yep.
So all this tells me is that, hey, now here's the physical part. Like, it's not even, oh, you're on your phone too much, or you're not present, all the emotional stuff. Now there is a physical problem where humans are evolving because of what's happening here.
We got to stop.
So I know what I'm going to do. I hope everyone kind of takes some advice here. So sounds like we're on the same page on this topic. Pretty interesting.
For sure, yeah.
Hope nobody grows horns here. Pretty wild stuff. So next topic, there's this lawsuit out there right now. It's a massive class action antitrust suit, specifically against the way that commissions are paid in real estate, and meaning that they feel, a lot of home sellers feel like they're forced to pay buyer agents commissions, and they're at a fixed rate. That's at least what the lawsuit assumes here. And to be very clear, I'm not talking about commissions. I want to be very clear with you on this, because that's not something we're allowed to do. That's not a legal thing. And the changes in the lawsuit, we talked about this, I guess it was like 2 months ago or something. So now there's more plaintiffs in the case. Big surprise. The complaint doubled in the amount of, it's now 72 pages. It's more than twice as long. And it alleges the National Association of Realtors and named brokers. So here's who they named. They named Realogy, which is Coldwell Banker, Century 21, a lot of big companies there. Keller Williams, Remax, Home Services, which is Berkshire Hathaway, and Long & Foster, which is part of the Berkshire Hathaway affiliate. So they named all these companies, and they're alleging that all the named companies and the National Association of Realtors have violated the Sherman Antitrust Act by agreeing and combining and conspiring to impose, implement, and enforce anti-competitive restraints that cause home sellers to pay inflated commissions on the sale of their home. So now they've named more people, they've got more plaintiffs, pretty typical for these big lawsuits. The bigger development that I see here is that, and this information came out pretty recently, was that they specifically named Keller Williams and the scripts that they use. So what they said here was they didn't mention Gary Keller, the CEO for Keller Williams, by name. What they alleged that Keller Williams instructs seller brokers to tell home sellers that standard real estate commissions have stabilized over years at right around 6%, and that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage competitively when you reduce your commission. So a couple things here, and then they have a picture of the script. So Jess, what do you think about all this before we get into it? Because I've got a couple things. I've done a lot of research on this, but let's hear what you have to say.
I think taking the position of saying that you're putting yourself as a seller at a disadvantage because realtors won't show your listing is not a point that I would make to someone that I'm speaking to on the phone. More importantly, I would be stressing that, like, the stats of how many houses sell with or without a realtor, and how much, like, focus on how much you may be losing if you do go a different way with the commission, instead of saying that realtors might not show your property, because that's not the case for all realtors. I mean, I know myself, when I have a client and they're looking at a bunch of different properties, I don't look at the price as long as it's in their range, and I don't look at the commission being paid out, because my objective at the end of the day is to get them into the right property. So I would be using a different objection to that point.
So they have a picture of the script that they use in this article, and apparently it's mentioned, and they actually cite this as evidence in the case. And all it is an objection handler, because that's what they're teaching here. I mean, scripting and dialogues are set everyone up in any sales job to be successful, no matter what. And where this is really a reach here is that they're talking about some numbers. We don't, I can tell you very candidly that when you interview for a listing, that's one of the questions that comes up. No one's forcing these sellers to sign with you. That's not happening. So number one, I mean, these aren't, and secondly, the conspiring. I mean, there's companies that come out all the time that are limited service brokerages that will charge less and do nothing for their clients. So they're only naming the big companies here, and they're naming NAR, but these other people are members of NAR, right? So that's number one. And then secondly, where they kind of look at these things here. I mean, it becomes a big reach, because educating sellers on what's going to help them sell their home is very different than an antitrust violation, because not everyone's going to want to go look at a home where they're not getting compensated. Not everyone's going to go show a home to do that, whether it's right or wrong. That's what happens. That's the reality. And people that go for sale by owner all the time. You wrote an offer over last week.
Yep.
They told us very clearly, we are not paying a fee. So what did Jess do? She went and showed the property, saw if it would work for her client. They wrote an offer. It didn't get accepted. And there was terms in the offer how everything would work. So this is not something that is practical. It doesn't happen all the time. So where this lawsuit is really reaching, and what I find funny about this is lawyers are talking to people about what they charge their clients when they charge you to pick up the phone and answer a phone call, and those rates are pretty standard. They're the going rate. And I'm not here to say lawyers shouldn't be doing that. They provide a very valuable service. So the headlines on this are very misleading. The purpose of the script is to help the seller as best as possible. And there's probably people that aren't doing things the right way, just like any industry, just like lawyers, accountants, doctors, all kinds of professionals. No one forces a seller to list with a full-service, full-time agent. And there's no price fix that happens, because there are full-time agents that will list it at less than the numbers being quoted here. I mean, I've seen it happen. So, and I'm not here to talk about commissions. We're not fixing anything. There's no antitrust. Let me be very clear about that. But I can tell you, working day to day, this doesn't happen.
No.
It doesn't happen, period. So that's where, this lawsuit is very interesting. And there's always been these attacks on real estate. So it looks like
jumping on.
Well, and they're naming everyone in the lawsuit, and that's how they go about these things. The point is, you get what you pay for. When you go to...
You have the option to do, like you said, the one-stop reduced commission brokerage and then another realtor.
Have you ever seen the show Botched on E? Right? Yeah. So these are people that go to discount plastic surgeons, and their face and their body gets destroyed because you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. And there's lawyers out there that are high-end, high-level litigators that charge a lot more than other lawyers, and people go with them because they want a better result. Mm-hmm. This is no different. And just because they're naming these companies, I know that there's agents at every one of those companies that do not have a fixed rate commission. I've seen it on settlement sheets. Like I can look at it with my own eyes. Mm-hmm. So where this comes from, it's a lot of reaching, and they're taking things and maybe using them out of context versus understanding what they're talking about here.
Fired up here.
But I mean, they're talking about an objection handler, and every other industry has these people where they do things at a discount, and there's no fixed rate. And I feel bad for those people on Botched. I've seen that show. It's like disgusting what happens, and they can't even like go out. I mean, they get horrible nose jobs and their body's destroyed because they went to a discount plastic surgeon. So maybe people should start thinking about it like that, because this can a bad home purchase or a bad home sale can destroy you financially.
Yes.
Just because it's easy to get a license doesn't mean everyone knows what they're talking about here.
So, you watch Botched, but you don't watch Black Mirror?
So I never even heard of Black Mirror, and Botched was on TV when my wife was home, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So, this lawsuit, it's going to continue to go on. I don't, I know some agents that charge more than the standard rate. I mean, this is what I'm not getting here, and people select it. So that's where I'm not understanding this from a practical level. Now, these guys have a job. There's more plaintiffs. This is going to go on for a long time. I just see this whole thing with script training being used as evidence here. Who wouldn't want to defend what they're earning, and who wouldn't want to give the seller the right information? Because helping a seller sell for more and get more buyers interested, it's going to get them a better price.
Use scripts in every single industry. I used it when I worked in retail at Mandy's. You use it when you work at a bar and you're talking to someone. You have a whole spiel. It's what you use to sound confident on the phone. So I would say, or in person.
Yeah, and sellers
I have no problem with scripts at all.
And sellers have the right to go shop around on the rates. They can ask people very clearly. I mean, this happens all the time. So
silly.
Well, and it's going to be, it's only going to be silly when it goes away. But I have a feeling this is going to be hanging around for a while here. So interesting stuff, nonetheless. Sounds like we're on the same page here again. Jess, what do you got for some motivation this week?
This is from Val, our marketing director. She always gives me some good stuff, but she didn't say this, but this is one of her favorite quotes from Antoine Saint-Exupery. It was a French writer, poet, journalist. He said, "Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away." And when I think of this, when I hear this, I think of perfection is not all that great. Perfection is just about, things are better when they're done instead of being perfect. But I like to paint a lot. I think I told you guys that. And there may not be more to add. But if you don't need to add anything, and if you think your piece or your work is good the way it is, then keep it. Perfection is something that I don't strive for. I just strive for getting it done and getting a result that I'm happy with.
I don't even believe perfection exists. So to be really clear, I mean, it's, there's a couple instances. Like there's a perfect game in baseball, right? You get a perfect score on a test, which is 100. So if you want to look at it that way, sure, there's nothing they can take away from you because you did everything right. You did it as much as you can. I don't really believe in perfection because anyone thinks that they handle something perfectly. There's always ways you can modify it, adjust it, and get better.
Very subjective.
I get the quote here because it's not when you can always add something or change something, but you can't take anything away from it when there's a perfect. I just think of the perfect game in baseball because, like, what do you want from the guy? You got everybody out, and nobody reached base, so there's not much that can really be done there, and so that there's nothing to take away. I don't see perfection as something that's a tangible, real thing. I mean, it's more of an idea. I don't know that you can ever get there, so there's always ways to improve, and I mean,
I feel like a lot of people. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, that's just my view on it. So it's an interesting quote.
I feel like a lot of people are very critical on themselves and trying to get to perfection, and whether it be their work or their relationships or their hobbies or anything like that. But if you always strive for perfection, you may not make progress, and it's good to strive for that. But knowing that what you have in front of you and what you've done is already an accomplishment, and perfection doesn't need to be.
Well, I would say done is better than perfect, right? I mean,
you say that all the time.
Well, because how much more are you going to work on something? I mean, are you going to tinker with something and try to make it better and better and better, or do you want to implement something new and then improve on it as you go? The guy who said this, he was the poet laureate for France, and he wrote The Little Prince, which is like a kid's book that I'm sure we have in our house somewhere. So I get it from an abstract point of view,
right?
But practically, I don't see how you can get there.
I can't tell you how many projects or ideas I've had that I have started and like wrote down like everything I would do for it, and then wanting to make it perfect, it never happened. And like just like you said, it never happens. So just start doing something, start physically doing something or putting a plan in place. That's better than perfection any day.
Little disagreement here. Only thing might be perfect is my wardrobe, but other than that, we don't have anything. I'm just kidding.
Are we debating?
No, we're not debating. I just know how to show up and look like a realtor.
Yes, you do.
So
for sure.
But that's the point. I mean, right? So I mean, there's nothing that's ever going to be perfect. So that's where I'm coming from on this. I don't know if that's what you expected me to say, but
I like it.
Catch you next week, guys. Thanks for watching.